Anyone here old enough to remember Drexel? Yeah. So Drexel collapsed in February of 1990, quite spectacularly in the same way that Lehman collapsed more recently, but for very different reasons. But I was on maternity leave with my first child when the company went under. So I didn't have the should I go back, shouldn't I go back to work decision to make. There was no company to return to. But I did have to decide that I wasn't going to go looking for the next big job. My husband and I weren't getting any younger. We wanted to have more kids. We ended up having 3 more kids over the next 5 years, so I was caught up in that whole cycle of pregnancy and nursing and didn't really feel like I was recruiting material during that time. But then when my 4th child was born, I left the paid workforce entirely, and I began a 6-year period at home with my kids. I did all sorts of activities I'm sure many of you in the audience are familiar with: PTO treasurer, PTO president, school redistricting campaigns, all of those types of involvement. Right when I left, I became the subject of a case study that was being written at Harvard Business School about professional career reentry, and it followed my career, building my career break, and then my return to work. And when that came out, they started asking me to come in and speak about my story, and then shortly after that, Vivian and I got the book contract. This is Juliana Margulies, one of the most famous relaunchers on TV. She plays the role of Alicia Florek, who is a lawyer who returns to work after a 13-year career break because her husband has to go to jail. That's its own separate story. But she joins the law firm where one of her law school classmates is the managing partner. And it gets very complicated. She becomes involved with him, and then she leaves his firm. But we're thrilled that Relaunching has made it onto mainstream TV. They didn't offer her an internship. They offered her a permanent position because they were so impressed with her background and the drive she exhibited by updating herself. So the point here is that the benefits of being back on campus only begin with what's going on in the classroom. That updating for sure is a key piece, but you're meeting your professor, you're meeting your classmates. By virtue of your student status, you have the opportunity to participate in career fairs, career services, or maybe even interview for internships. So that's why being back on campus is such a great thing. Can you walk me through your career path? I see that you've went to a competitor or you've left the business. I'd be really interested in the decisions that you made for yourself over the last 7 years while I've been out. So these are ways not only to gather relevant information for yourself, but also to rebuild relationships in the process. They said, we don't have anything, but we'll call her in. She wasn't sure if it was a courtesy to him. She said, we had a perfectly nice conversation. They called me in, didn't hear from them. 6 weeks later, she gets a call. They said, we've had some people leave, we're reconfiguring jobs. One of the jobs we're reconfiguring might be a good match with your skill set. We want to talk to you some more. So she comes in. Turns out the job's a temp job. This was at the end of October, but it was what they were trying to do was try her out. It was a temp job that could possibly turn into a permanent job if things worked out. So it was such a good opportunity that she took it, and then she, of course, blew away all of their expectations, and not only did they hire her permanently at the beginning of 2012, but they made the job even more interesting and challenging. So that the sole difference in her strategy was to go public and get out there and start talking to people. And the other thing I want to encourage you to do is to get involved in your professional association in the role of planning events, because that is how you meet experts in your field or academics or other key contexts, but you're having the conversation about the event. It doesn't have to do with your job search. You're building the relationship based on either brainstorming with them on who the best people might be to participate in a certain program or asking them to speak. And that's a great way to start and build a relationship.